Hey everyone, it's Mr. Wild194. I hope you're doing well today. I have a book review for you once again. This is D.O.A. 2 Extreme Horror Collection, edited by David C. Hayes and Jack Burton. I read the first book on this channel. I reviewed it. It's called D.O.A., not D.O.A. 2, and I really like it. If you're looking for this book review, it should be in a playlist also for the D.O.A. series. There's only 3 of these. It's a trilogy, like I said, and it is pretty solid. I really dig these books. Now, in case you're new to extreme horror and don't really know what that is, you're not a big horror fan, extreme horror is the kind of thing like Richard Lehman would write, or Brian Keene, one of those types that do a lot of extreme stuff. There's rape in there, kind of excessive rape, sometimes more in the first volume of this series than there is in this volume, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot of pedophilia type stuff, but always for the villain, not for like a good guy or anything. Always the really bad stuff that bad people do, just the evils in the world. But it's not just like straight up thriller and type of things like that. There can be monsters, there can be creatures, there can be creepy crawlers, there can be zombies, vampires, werewolves, all kinds of stuff like that. I will tell you, I love the first volume. I think this one's not as good, but it's still solid. I still enjoyed it. I had a good time reading it. There can be stories that have fantasy also in there. I forgot to mention that, but there are some of those that have a little bit of that in there as well, and they can be fun. This one is mostly like thriller type stuff, not as wild and zany as the first book actually had. A lot of stories that were more wild and zany, but again, I had a really good time with it. I plan on going ahead and giving you the list of all the authors that wrote stories for here, and then I'll give you my favorites and so on, and probably my least favorite critiques and whatnot, but give me a chance. I'm gonna go find that page real quick. The list of authors in the back of the book are as follows: David Bernstein, Laura Campbell, Anton Canker, I'm not really sure, Robert Devereaux, who apparently is a name that I relatively know, I think, Joshua Dobson, Robert Essig, J.F. Gonzalez, Kelly M Hudson, Harper Hole, K. Trap Jones, Jack Ketchum, an author that I really love. I read Cover years ago. I really like Jack Ketchum. Matt Kurtz, who wrote my favorite story in here. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Carrie G.S. Lipp, Raymond Little, Ken McGregor, Shane McKenzie, John McNee, Gregory L. Norris, Thomas Pluck, David Quinn, Jason Reinhardt, Daniel I. Russell, D. Lynn Smith, Christopher Triana, Kaylee Voorhees, Rath James White, an author that I've heard much about. I've never actually read his work. I have a book coming in the mail from him. I can't wait to show that in a book haul for you guys sometime. And Wolverine, or Wolverine, I'm not really sure how to say that name. It's W-O-L-V-R-I-E-Y. That's an odd little, I guess it's a fake name, maybe a pen name, I don't know. There's some really good work in here. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of fantasy stuff in here like there was in the first volume, but there is some really good stuff I enjoyed. A lot of thriller type stuff, a lot of, I had a crazy childhood type of stories and different types of things like that. There was one about a baptism that was like entirely insane and wild, and as a Christian, I thought it was kind of a fun way to look at baptisms in an odd way. So that Wolverine guy actually wrote a story that I really like. I think it's called Real Dino Shit. This one's actually about a zombie that's very fat, apparently possibly pregnant, I don't really know, but the thing is stuck inside of a very small bathroom inside of this guy named Moe's apartment. And this thing inside of the zombie is a little bit odd as a storytelling element, and I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was super fun. The zombie in the bathroom thing was really funny. It sounded like something right out of Zombieland, if you've ever seen that movie. That was probably my second favorite story of the whole book. I think my personal favorite was called Finger Cuffs by Matt Kurtz. This one was so good, dude. I've talked about this nonstop to my friends about how good this was. So basically in the story, there's a guy that's a pedophile driving around in a van, and he basically is trying to pick up little girls in the town and attack them and whatnot. He actually sees 2 little girls selling cold lemonade, and he goes over and tries to get them away from their house, get them to come to the car, look at some candy and stuff, and things don't go right for him, and it is a great story. It's so satisfying, dude. That's the thing I love about extreme horror. A lot of the time you have stuff like Richard Lehman's The Cellar, where the ending is really not satisfying in my opinion, but then you have stories like this that are just extremely satisfying. They make you feel good about what happens to the bad guy and the creep in this situation. It was great. K. Trap Jones actually wrote another story I really enjoyed in here called Burn the Witches. It's kind of like The Purge, before The Purge movies even existed as far as I know. I don't know when this book came out. It might have been like 2010 or maybe a little bit later. But I think it was before the first Purge film came out. This is like a guy in a town that has a lot of witches. And basically, people are just told, like, hey, this one night of the year, or a couple of days of the year, something like that, you're allowed to go around and kill as many witches as you want in any worse way you possibly can. But if you, like, bury the witches, they come back to life and try to get you even worse. It is a crazy fun story. If I wasn't wrong, I would swear Brian Keene wrote the story. It feels like a Brian Keene story. So K. Trap Jones, I'm a fan of yours now because of the story. It was fantastic. It was fun. The ending was really fun. It was a really crazy over-the-top story. It was wild, dude. There's a lot of gore and blood in these books too, these extreme horror type books, whether it be this series, D.O.A., or something else out there from another author by himself. But if you don't have a stomach for that, you're not gonna like this book. I'll tell you that straightforward. But this particular story was really gory and fun and crazy. It had some magic in there, that was pretty fun. And then as you read the book, there are certain stories that I really, really enjoyed. STD is one by David Bernstein, and I enjoyed most of it, and then the ending is really too weird for me. I don't really entirely understand what I read by the end of that story, the last couple of pages or paragraphs. Basically, a guy sleeps with a girl, and he starts having problems with this thing, and it just kind of becomes more horrific as the story goes on. If you're a guy, this is going to affect you even more. I don't know how a girl would feel reading this. It's still gruesome and bloody and everything else, but the stuff that's happening there, it's horrific. It's like there's a pimple on his thing, like I said, and it's pretty sick, man. But my big complaint with the overall book is a lot of stories in this book are like this. You have a story that's mostly entertaining and really engaging, and then the ending's not that great. And then you have some stories in here that are really, really zany and wild. This is more like a thriller type thing, not so much a horror fantasy type thing, but it's called Fat Boy by Kelly M Hudson. This is a really good one. Kind of a bullying story. This guy gets bullied a lot in high school, and he basically kidnaps two people, and the stuff he does to them, reflecting on what they had done to him in high school and the way they had bullied him and called him Fat Boy and everything because he was a big old fella like myself. It was horrific. It was insanely gory and just, you won't forget that one. And then every once in a while you get a story like this that I just don't like. This is Joshua Dobson's The Pubic Hair Tumbleweed, and it is stupid. It's really stupid. It's exactly what it sounds like, and it's just, why? Why would you write this? Why would you put this in a D.O.A. collection? It was terrible, frankly. I'm sure Joshua Dobson's a good writer. This story was just bad, period. There's a story in here called Game of Golf by Gregory Norris, and that's a fun one too, about a guy killing people on a golf course. That's pretty fun. Watching out for his motivations on why he did that are a little odd, but it was a fun story. That was cool too, in case you want a recommendation from this book. And then we get to the most notorious in here, named Wrath James White. His story is called Sexy, and I did not dig this. I have a faith in Wrath James White doing well. He has a name for a reason. I do believe that he'll be good for whatever he's gonna do for his actual novels by himself, or maybe a short story collection. This is not one of his best in my opinion. This is my first time ever reading Wrath James White. This is not my reflection on him as a person or his books or anything like that. This was just a bad short story, period. It basically was about a guy who knew a girl from high school that was kind of ugly and whatnot, and she got into shape apparently, and he sees her all those years later, like 10 or 15 years later, I guess. And she's riding a motorcycle, and apparently she's like an assassin now. That was a weird underground type story with a lot of like weird sexual stuff in it, but the story didn't really have a satisfying ending at all. It just kind of ends. It could have been like almost a prequel type of thing for an actual novel itself. The novel could have been a lot better, I think, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe Wrath James White is better at doing just an actual novel and not a short story, but I don't know. This wasn't the best. Not for him anyway. And then we get to the big name involved this time around. I don't think he was in D.O.A. 1 as far as I know, but it's Jack Ketchum. His short story is called If Memory Serves. In this particular short story, you actually have a therapist interviewing a young lady, apparently, I think it was a young lady, who has a kind of a memory issue thing. I don't know if he had to hypnotize her or some weird thing like that. But anyway, it was like an interview between the two, and it was a wild, kind of messy story. Now, I read Cover from Jack Ketchum, and I loved Cover. I thought it was a really solid book. I think I loved it more than most people. I consider Jack Ketchum a great writer. It's sad that he passed away. I really feel bad about that. This short story is not his best, in my opinion. I think it's really not Jack Ketchum at his best. I think Cover was about the best I have read from him. Wrath James White and Jack Ketchum have extreme talent, so I know they could have done better than what they did here, but still, that's really my review on their big stories. I really wanted to get my thoughts out there for those guys. I liked If Memory Serves more than I liked Wrath James White's story, Sexy, just because it had a little bit more consistency to it. It felt like it had a better ending, in my opinion. It is what it is. D.O.A. 2 has a lot of really cool things in it. It's just not my favorite book ever. I think D.O.A. 1 is perfect. I love that book. It's really only a couple of nitpicky things I had to complain about it, but overall, I gave that book a perfect score, honestly. This one I can't really do that with. When it comes to D.O.A. 2, I'm going to give the short story collection, anthology, whatever, a 3 out of 5 stars. That's really a good rating in my opinion. It's not a bad one at all. It's just kind of a mixed book. You have some really good ones here, some really, really good ones. Again, Finger Cuffs, excellent story. I love that one so much. But you have some that are just not what they need to be. I just think not all of them are that good. I think most of them are really solid. And then some are good with a bad ending. But I had a good time reading the book. It's only 250 pages, so it flew by kind of fast. I've been reading it off and on for the last couple of months, but you know, I really enjoyed it. So guys, have you read D.O.A. 2? Have you read the whole series, the whole trilogy, whatever it is? I hope they make more of these. I haven't read 3 yet. I hope to get to that sometime soon whenever I get through some of the books I'm currently reading. But overall, I really enjoyed the book. I hope you guys do too if you take my recommendation and pick it up sometime. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you have to say about this book. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you, and goodbye.